Hi everyone, this is Flower Child 567 and welcome to the Elderscrolls Online Tamriel Storyteller Hour. And of course I am your host, and here I am. I'm standing upon the beautiful land of Artaeum, right? Because we're finishing up our last conversation about the Psijic order. And as you can see, I'm standing up here, up above. You can see my blue. And this is a world outside of Tamriel, isn't it? Yeah, it is. So we are outside of time. But here I am, and I'm looking at the very powerful Sephira Tower, which is where all the magic council exists. And this is the only way shrine onto the island, right there, the Artaeum way shrine. Or, of course, if you have the Grand Psijic Villa, which is currently on sale in the market, in the store. You can grab that if you want. We are kind of a confined little place. Anyways, it's a beautiful landscape, and I'm excited to finish up about the Psijics. So without further ado, we're going to actually focus on this scene for right now as I begin to share with you about the final part of the Psijic. And I want to say thank you to my viewers out there. I've been watching you trickle in. I started a few minutes early, but I see you all coming in. And thank you so much for tuning in. And hi, Visionary. And just spending some of your precious time with me. All right, so we're going to go to read about the Psijic order, and I want to start off with this wonderful quote. There are layers to understanding all things, said Sothis Seal. The common man looks at an object and fits it into a place in his way of thinking. Those skilled in the old ways, in the way of the Psijic, in mysticism, can see an object and identify it by its proper role. But one more layer is needed to be peeled back to achieve understanding. You must identify the object by its role and its truth, and interpret that meaning. And this quote comes to us from the lore book 2920, the last year of the First Era. And that's what I'm going to be reading for us today, the last year of the First Era. 2920 was written by Karlovac Townway. It's a fictional series of books about historical events involving Vivek and the Empire. And please note that 2920 is a well-researched historical fiction, as noted in Interview with 3 writers. And here we go. Book 1, Morning Star. One morning star, 2920, Mournhold, Morrowind. Almalexia lay in her bed of fur, dreaming. Not until the sun burned through her window, infusing the light wood and flesh colors of her chamber in a milky glow, did she open her eyes. It was quiet, and serene, a stunning reverse of the flavor of her dreams, so full of blood and celebration. For a few moments, she simply stared at the ceiling, trying to sort through her visions. In the courtyard of her palace was a boiling pool which steamed in the coolness of the winter morning. At the wave of her hand, it cleared, and she saw the face and form of her lover Psijic in his study to the north. She did not want to speak right away. He looked so handsome in his dark red robes, writing his poetry as he did every morning. "Psijic," she said, and he raised his head in a smile, looking at her face across thousands of miles. "I have seen a vision of the end of the war. After 80 years, I don't think anyone can imagine an end," said Psijic with a smile. But he grew serious, trusting Almalexia's prophecies. Who will win, Morrowind or the Cyrodiilic Empire? "Without Sotha Sil in Morrowind, we will lose," she replied. "My intelligence tells me the Empire will strike back. It will strike us to the north in early springtide, by first seed at the latest. Could you go to Artaeum and convince him to return?" "I'll leave today," she said simply. For Morning Star 2920, Gideon, Black Marsh. The Empress paced around her cell. Wintertide gave her wasteful energy, while in the summer she would merely sit by her window and be grateful for each breath of stale swamp wind that came to cool her. Across the room, her unfinished tapestry of a dance at the imperial court seemed to mock her. She ripped it from its frame, tearing the pieces apart as they drifted to the floor. Then she laughed at her own useless gesture of defiance. She would have plenty of time to repair it, and a craft to 100 more. The Emperor had locked her up in Castle Giovesi 7 years ago, and would likely keep her here until he died, or she died. With a sigh, she pulled the cord to call her knight, Zook. He appeared at the door within minutes, fully uniformed as befitted an imperial guard. Most of the native Kothringi tribesmen of Black Marsh preferred to go about naked, but Zook had taken a positive delight to fashion. His silver reflective skin was scarcely visible, only on his face, neck, and hands. "Your Imperial Highness," he said with a bow. "Zook," said Empress Tavia, "I'm bored. Let's discuss methods of assassinating my husband today." 14th Morning Star. The Imperial City, Cyrodiil. The chimes proclaiming Southwind's prayer echoed through the wide boulevards and gardens of the Imperial City, calling all to their temples. The Imperial Renman III always attended a service at the Temple of the One, which his son and his Prince Julik found it more political to attend a service at a different temple for each religious holiday. This year, it was at the Cathedral Benevolence of Mara. The Benevolence service were mercifully short, but it was not until well after noon that the emperor was able to return to the palace. By then, the arena combatants were impatiently waiting for the start of the ceremony. The crowd was far less restless at the potentate Verzadieu Shahi had arranged for a demonstration from a troupe of Khajiit acrobats. "Your religion is so much more convenient than mine," said the emperor to his potentate, by way of an apology. "What is the first game?" "A one-on-one battle between two able warriors," said the potentate, his scaly skin catching the sun as he rose, "armed befitting their culture." "Sounds good," said the emperor, and clapped his hands. "Let the sport commence." As soon as he saw the two warriors enter the arena to the roar of the crowd, Emperor Remman III remembered that he had agreed to this several months before and forgotten about it. One combatant was the potentate's son, Severin Shorak, a glistening ivory-yellow eel, gripping his katana, and wakizashi with his thin, deceptively weak-looking arms. The other was the emperor's son, Prince Julik, in ebony armor with a savage, orcish helm, shield, and longsword at his side. "This will be fascinating to watch," hissed the potentate, a wide grin across his narrow face. "I don't know if I've even seen a Cyrodiil fight an Akavir like this. Usually it's army against army. At last we can settle which philosophy is better, to create armor to combat swords as your people do, or to create swords to combat armor as mine do." No one in the crowd, aside from a few scattered Akavari counselors and the potentate himself, wanted Severin Chorak to win, but there was a collective intake of breath at the sight of his graceful movements. His sword seemed to be a part of him, a tail coming from his arms to match the one behind him. It was a trick of counterbalance, allowing the young serpent man to roll up into a circle and spin into the center of the ring in defensive position. The prince had to plod forward the less impressive traditional way. As they sprang at each other, the crowd bellowed with delight. The Akavari was like a moon in orbit around the prince, effortlessly spinning over his shoulder to attempt a blow from behind, but the prince whirled around quickly to block with his shield. His counter-strike met only. One moment, please. I've lost my spot. Oh, as they sprang at each other. Oh, here we go. But there was a collective impetus. Oh, I'm so sorry, my friends. Oh, it doesn't matter. The prince fell to the ground with a resonating crash. Metal and air melted together as Severin Chorak rained strike after strike upon the prince, who blocked everyone with his shield. "We don't have shields in our culture," murmured Verzadieu Shahi to the emperor. "It seems strange to my boy. I imagine in our country, if you don't want to get hit, you move out of the way." When Severin Chorak was rearing back to begin another series of blinding attacks, the prince kicked at his tail, sending him falling back momentarily. In an instant he had rebounded, but the prince was also back on his feet. The two circled one another until the snake man spun forward, katana extended. The prince saw his foe's plan and blocked the katana with his long sword, with the wakizashi, with his shield. In short, punching blade impaled itself in the metal, and Sovereign Chorak was thrown off balance. The prince's long blade slashed across the Akavari's chest, and the sudden intense pain caused him to drop both his weapons. It was a moment. It was over. Sovereign Chorak was prostrate, in the dust, with the prince's long sword at his throat. "The game's over!" shouted the emperor, barely heard over the applause from the stadium. The prince grinned and helped Sovereign Chorak up and over to a healer. The emperor clapped his potentate on the back, feeling relieved. He had not realized when the fight had begun how little chance he had given his son at victory. "He will make a fine warrior," said Veridu Shane, "and a great emperor." "Just remember," laughed the emperor, "you Akavari have a lot of showy moves, but if just one of our strikes come through, it's all over for you." "Oh, I'll remember that," nodded the potentate. Rimmon thought about the comment for the rest of the games and had trouble fully enjoying himself. Could the potentate be another enemy, just as the emperor had turned out to be? The matter would bear watching. Well, that was an interesting warrior tale. And of course, the Black Marsh is home to the Argonians. All right, let me just do another view for a little bit. I've got a nice warrior riding around me. But I think what I would like to do is maybe come over here. Come over here and look at this view right here. This is a rather beautiful view. Wouldn't you agree? We've got a worker walking back and forth. All right, let me continue our lore of 2920. 21 Morning Star, 2920 Mournhold Morrowind. "Why don't you wear the green gown I gave you?" asked the Duke of Mournhold, watching the young maiden put on her clothes. "It doesn't fit," smiled Turala, "and you know I like red." "It doesn't fit because you're getting fat," laughed the Duke, pulling her down on the bed, kissing her breasts and the pouch of her stomach. She laughed at the tickles, but pulled herself up, wrapping her red robe around her. "I'm round like a woman should be," said Tuala. "Will I see you tomorrow?" "No," said the Duke. "I must entertain Vivek tomorrow. And the next day, the Duke of Evanhart is coming. Do you know, I never really appreciated Almalexia and her political skills until she left." "It is the same with me," smiled Turala. "You will only appreciate me when I'm gone." "Not true at all," snorted the Duke. "I appreciate you now." Turala allowed the Duke one last kiss before she was out the door. She kept thinking about what he said. Would he appreciate her more or less when he knew that she was getting fat because she was carrying his child? Would he appreciate her enough to marry her? The year continues in Sunsdawn. Now we move into Book 2, Sunsdawn. Suns Dawn is a nice name, isn't it? I'm going to move us to yet another scenery. Oh, look at this pretty tree. Let's look at the trees. Let's look at the trees, shall we? Oh, yes, indeed. 3 Suns Dawn, 2920, the Isle of Artaeum, Somerset. Sothisil watched the initiates float one by one up to the osum tree, taking a fruit or a flower from its high branches before dropping back to the ground with varying degrees of grace. He took a moment while nodding his head in approval to admire the day. The white-washed statue of Sirabane, which the great mage was said to have posed for in ancient days, stood at the precipice of the cliff overlooking the bay. Pale purple Prosciutto flowers waved to and fro in the gentle breeze, and beyond ocean and the misty border between Artaeum and the main island of Somerset. By and large, acceptable, he proclaimed, as the last student dropped her fruit in his hand. With a wave of his hand, the fruit and flowers were back in the tree. With another wave, the students had formed into a position in semicircle around the sorcerer. He pulled a small, fibrous ball about a foot in diameter from his white robes. "What is this?" The students understood the test. It asked them to cast a spell of identification on the mysterious object. Each initiate closed his or her eyes and imagined the ball in the realm of the universal truth. Its energy had a unique resonance, as all physical and spiritual matter does, a negative aspect, a duplicate version, relative paths, true meaning, a song in the cosmos, a texture in the fabric of space, a facet of being that has always existed and always will exist. "A ball," said a young Nord named Velig, which brought giggles from some of the younger initiates, but a frown from most, including Sothisil. "If you must be stupid, at least be amusing," growled the sorcerer, and then looked at a young dark-haired Altmer lass who looked confused. "Lilatha, do you know?" "It's Grom," said Lilatha uncertainly. "What the druid mef after their Craviniums, but very good nonetheless," said Sothisil. "Now tell me, what does that mean?" I don't know," admitted Lilitha. The rest of the students also shook their heads. "There are layers to understanding all things," said Sothisil. "The common man looks at an object and fits it into a place in his way of thinking. Those skilled in the old ways, in the way of the Psijic, in mysticism, can see an object and identify it by its proper role. But one more layer is needed to be peeled back to achieve understanding. You must identify the object by its role and its truth and interpret that meaning. In this case, this ball is indeed Grom, which is a substance created by the Dre, an underwater race in the north and western parts of the continent. For 1 year of their life, they undergo carbonasium when they walk upon the land. Following that, they return to the water and meth, or devour the skin and organs they needed for land dwelling. Then they vomit it up into little balls like this. Grom. Dre vomit. The students looked at the ball a little queasily. Sothisil always loved this lesson. That's kind of a funny story, I think. Beautiful, beautiful land. beautiful land. Four Suns Dawn 2920. The Imperial City, Cyrodiil. Spies, muttered the Emperor, sitting in his bath, staring at a lump on his foot. All around me, traitors and spies. His Mr. Rija washed his back, her legs wrapped around his waist. She knew after all these many years when to be sensual and when to be sexual. When he was in a mood like this, it was best to be calmly, soothingly, seductively sensual, and not to say a word, unless he asked her a direct question, which he did. What do you think when a fellow steps on his Imperial Majesty's foot and says, I'm sorry, your Imperial Majesty? Don't you think? Pardon me is better. Oh, your Imperial Majesty, pardon me. Is more important, is more appropriate. I'm sorry. Well, that almost sounds like the bastard Argonian was sorry. I'm his Imperial Majesty. And he hopes we lose the war with Morrowind. That's what it sounds like. What would make you feel better? Asked Rija. Would you like him flogged? He is only, as you say, the battle chief of Soul Rest. It would teach him to mind where he's stepping. My father would have flogged him. My grandfather would have him killed, the Emperor grumbled. But I don't mind if they all step on my feet, provided they respect me and don't plot against me. You must trust someone. Only you, smiled the Emperor, turning slightly to give Rija a kiss. And my son, Jillik, I suppose, though I wish we were a little more cautious. And your council? And the potentate? Asked Rija. A pack of spies and a snake, said the Emperor. All right. Well, how do you like that? We are going to, we're going to look in another direction and perhaps even move our location. This story is really, this lore book is really fun. And it's one that I think lots of people should read. We're going to continue in just a moment with 16 Suns Dawn. So let's see. Oh, look at this. Aren't I the happiest person in the world? A chest. Don't we just love chests? I do. Yes, indeed. And a crate. So I guess I came here because it's time for a looting session. You see, my friends? Never, never, never look a gift horse in the mouth. Yes, indeed. All right. My little session is now over. Oh, maybe not. Maybe not. Look at this. Let's see. Ah, look at. I'm a firm believer, and this is Flower Child 567 lore. Whenever you have the opportunity to loot, especially if you are a crafter, you loot. You loot, my friends. And look at right there, heavy sack. Isn't that grand? Heavy sack. All right. We're going to go inside here. Here's a merchant. I think I've shown that merchant to you before. going to go down here into the inner sanctum. Where's the door? There it is, the Dreaming Cave. Here is the Dreaming Cave. We're going to enter the Dreaming Cave portal. Oh, I haven't met the requirements. Well, what the hell? I thought I had. I have this quest done. Well, alright, we don't get to go down in there. So I'll just stand right here in the middle of it and pout. Alright, let me come over here out of the way. And that will be our next view. The Dreaming Cave. Okay. 16, Sun's Dawn, 29, 20. Jean Call, Anaquina, the modern day elsewhere. What troubles you? Asked Queen Hasama, noticing her husband's sour mood. At the end of most lovers' days, he was in an excellent mood, dancing in the ballroom with all his guests. But tonight he retired early, and when she found him, he was curled in the bed, frowning. That blasted bard's tale about Polydor and Eloisa put me in a rotten state, he growled. Why did he have to be so depressing? But isn't that the truth of the tale, my dear? Weren't they doomed because of the cruel nature of the world? It doesn't matter what the truth is. He did a rotten job of telling a rotten tale, and I'm not going to let him do it anymore. King Drozel sprang from the bed. His eyes were roomy with tears. Where did they say he was from again? I believe Gilverdale is in easternmost Valenwood, said the queen, shaken. My husband, what are you going to do? Drozel was out of the room in a single spring, bounding up the stairs to his tower. If Queen Hasama knew what her husband was going to do, she did not try to stop him. He had been erratic of late, prone to fits and even occasional seizures, but she never suspected the depths of his madness and his loathing for the bard and his tale of the wickedness and perversity found in mortal man. 19 Sun's Dawn, 29:20. Gilverdale, Valenwood. Listen to me again, said the old carpenter. If cell 3 holds worthless brass, then cell 2 holds the gold key. If cell 1 holds the gold key, then cell 3 holds worthless brass. If cell 2 holds worthless brass, then cell 1 holds the gold key. I understand, said the lady. You told me. And so cell 1 holds the gold key, right? No, said the carpenter. Let me start from the top. Mama, said the little boy, pulling on his mother's sleeve. Just one moment, dear. Mother's talking, she said, concentrating on the riddle. You said cell 3 holds the golden key if cell 2 holds worthless brass, right? No, said the carpenter patiently. Cell 3 holds worthless brass if cell 2... Mama, cried the boy. His mother finally looked at him. A bright red mist was pouring over the town in a wave, engulfing building after building in its wake. Striding before was a red-skinned giant, the Daedra, Moloch Ball. He was smiling. 29 Sun's Dawn, 29:20. Gilverdale, Valenwold. Almalexia stopped her steed in the vast moor of mud to let him drink from the river. He refused to, even seemed repelled by the water. It struck her as odd. They had been making excellent time from Mournhold, and surely he must be thirsty. She dismounted and joined his retinue. "Where are we now?" she asked. One of her ladies pulled out a map. "I thought we were approaching a town called Gilthadale." Almalexia closed her eyes and opened them again quickly. The vision was too much to bear, and her followers watched. She picked up a piece of brick and a fragment of bone and clutched them to her heart. "We must continue on to Artaeum," she said quietly. "The year continues in first seed." Alright, so now we're going into Book 3 of 2920, which is about the first seed. Now I have to tell you something. There are many seeds. Let me get up to the top, though. I can't believe I couldn't get down into the Cave of Dreaming. I'm almost positive I've done this. Maybe it's only open for when you do the quest. I don't remember. It's been so long ago. I did this right after this DLC opened up. Look at, I could paint here. What are they painting of? Nothing very spectacular. It's kind of a poor choice that a painter would make. A painter wouldn't, unless they were doing a special setting of the day, I guess. Let's see what's over here. What's down below? Okay. Okay, so I want to share with you that we're moving into Book 3, which has the first seed in it, and then it's going to go to Book 4, and anyways, this is going to be much longer than today's reading, but I guess that's okay. Let's go to Book 3, the first seed, 15th first seed, 2920, Cower, Sivio, Cyrigel. From their vantage point, high in the hills, the Emperor Rimmon III could still see the spires of the imperial city, but he knew he was far away from hearth and home. Lord Glavius had a luxurious villa, but it was not close to being large enough to house the entire army within its walls. Tents lined the hillsides, and the soldiers were flocking to enjoy his lordship's famous hot springs. Little wonder winter chill still hung in the air. "Prince Gillick, your son is not feeling well." When potentate Virisu spoke, the emperor jumped. How that Akavir could slither across the grass without making a sound was a mystery to him. "Poisoned, I'd wager," grumbled Rimmon. "See to it he gets a healer. I told him to hire a taster, like I have, but the boy's headstrong. There are spies all around us. I know it." I believe you're right, Your Imperial Majesty," said Versidue, shy. "These are treacherous times, and we must take precautions to see that Morrowind does not win this war, either on the field or by more insidious means. That is why I would suggest that you not lead the vanguard into battle. I know you would want to, as your illustrious ancestors, Rimmon I, Brazolas, Dor, and Rimmon II did, but I fear it would be foolhardy. I hope you do not mind me speaking frankly like this." "No," nodded Rimmon, "I think you're right. Who would lead the vanguard, then?" "I would say Prince Julik, if he were feeling better," replied the Akavir. "Failing that, Storg of Farum, with Queen Nagia of Riverhold at the left flank, and War Chief Uligwith of Lillimont at right flank." "A Khajiit at left flank and an Argonian at right?" frowned the Emperor. "I never do trust beast folk." The potentate took no offense. He knew that beast folk referred to the natives of Tamriel, not to the Taseki of Akavar like himself. "I quite agree, Your Imperial Majesty, but you must agree." Oh, dang it. Hold on one moment. I did it again. I quite agree, Your Imperial Majesty, but you must agree that they hate the Dunmer. Uliquith has a particular grudge after all the slave raids on his land by the Duke of Mournhold. The Emperor conceded it was so, and the potentate retired. It was surprising, thought Rimmon, but for the first time the potentate seemed trustworthy. He was a good man to have on one side. The 18th of First Siege, 2920, Elderscrolls, Morrowind. How far is the Imperial army? Asked Vivek. 2 days' march, replied his lieutenant. If we march all night tonight, we can get higher ground at the Pariah tomorrow morning. Our intelligence tells us the Emperor will be commanding the rear. Storg of Farum has the vanguard, Nagaya of Riverhold at left flank, and Uliquith of Lillimont at right flank. Uliquith, whispered Vivek, an idea forming. Is this intelligence reliable? Who brought it to us? A Breton spy in the Imperial army, said the lieutenant, and gestured towards a young, sandy-haired man who stepped forward and bowed to Vivek. What is your name, and why is a Breton working for us against the Cyrodiils? Asked Vivek, smiling. My name is Cassir Whitley of Dwenyman, and the man added, I am working for you because not everyone can say they spied for a god, and I understood it would be well profitable. Vivek laughed. It will be, if your information is accurate. Well, my friends, that's all I'm going to read for you today. I think I'm going to have to do another Psijic. I thought this was the last one, but it does look like I am going to have to do another storytelling to get through 2920. So we will resume next time, right where we left off. So thank you very much for tuning in today. I hope you had a nice time listening. And maybe, some of you learned something about your race history that you didn't know, like the Oregonian history, and also that a Breton spy came to work for Vivek. Oh well, it doesn't matter. It's all fun and games. All right, my friends, thank you. And it's Friday. Have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the event going on. And speaking of Bretons, right, in High Isle. And have fun this weekend. And I will see you next week. I will see you on Tuesday for a very special There's No Place Like Home episode that I'll be hosting. And actually, it's going to be involving my Sea Bloom villa, but it's more importantly a Friendsgiving for some of my very, very special and dear friends. So I'll see you Tuesday, 2 p.m. Pacific time. All right, take care. Bye for now.